Out of the fullness came he, and who, without speaking, yet spoke his name, and it was unknown to all but him. And she, whose womb is the gateway to all of the worlds. Tender waves of pearlescent light danced upon her face, framing the far reaches of her gaze. With the rise and fall of her bosom, she orchestrated the tidal choirs of both heaven and earth. Galaxies spewed forth from her womb, organizing in perfect grace under the watchful eye of the Nameless One. Songs of supernal light resounded between them, imbuing all of creation with their love and embrace. Everything was in its rightful place. Harmony unfurled her wings and brought all unto her fold. Herein was perfection. Every nuance of his beauticious bride gladdened him, as unmeasured time passed through indefinable space. A glorious radiance suffused her body. Droplets of light cascaded on her brow. Rivulets of radiance created her hair. Skin, soft as moonlight, blended into the dust of stars behind her. Rubies, large as mountains, formed her hands. Emeralds, the size of Gaia, glinted in her eyes. Jasper, sweet jasper, gleamed tenderly from her womb, as the delicate curve of her full breast heaved and shone starlight into the aching void. Her face was born of alabaster, carved in pure pearl, clear and defined one moment, swathed in waves of light the next. Sometimes it dissolved only to rise in swirling, coruscating spirals, dancing in delight, obeying her every whisper of a thought. The subtlest shimmy of her movement undulated galaxies into manifestation. Form followed form, light followed light. Dancing motes of dust sparkled in her twirling, grace-filled whirlwind. Planets echoed across the universe in its wake. Silver shone from her chin. Moonbeams gleamed from her ears, illuminating the darkness into its truth. Sapphire robes bedecked her one moment, crimson white the next. Effortlessly, beguilingly shape-shifting. For just as clothes are, so are forms. He would often wander through the delightful ripples of her presence, wishing to know her more, aching to know this part of him that encapsulated inexhaustible comeliness. She astounded him, She filled his creation, stretching its boundaries at the seams, saturating his countless manifold realms with a bursting ripeness and a glowing, intoxicating fragrance. She turned in her dance to gaze back to him, replete in her glory, satiated in her fullness, full of herself. In that moment she had a thought, one that was born from separation. Realizing her action, she quickly withdrew her attention, but it was too late. Now her deep leaning was about to begin. Her body became clear as quartz. Her glorious luster now vanished into a transparent reverie. Millions upon millions of pieces shattered and came together, millions upon millions of times, all in the same moment. A house of shattering light was born, a mansion of crossing, a bridge of becoming, a floating abyss of shining light, resounding silently through infinity. A vague and distant shadow began to emerge on the horizon, a horizon until this very moment had never even existed. Seeping into their entwined divine consciousness, even when solitude naturally beckoned, they began to explore this burgeoning shadow, curious to know its meaning, and yet hesitant to unlock its secret. Alone, each one of them gazed into this nuance of unexplored possibility, a secret each kept without telling the other. It was only when the Holy Sophia was safely alone in her inner sanctum that this shadowy companion chose its moment to silently, stealthily creep forward, pressing into her awareness with a gradual, undulating momentum. This was the beginning of something else. Its presence overwhelmed her. She had never known anything like it. Its incessant urgency to commune with her threatened to envelop her consciousness. She feared the magnitude of its message. The black pools of her irises swelled, and a barely audible gasp escaped her lips. It felt as if a distant, nostalgic sentiment grabbed at her heart, aching for her tenderness, begging for her merciful embrace. She cried out loud for the Nameless One, as boundless and strange energies moved within her as she held the shadow and its message. In one moment, he was with her, the mother of all creation. The Holy Sophia closed her eyes and rolled back into his buoyant light, lolling in his sea of softly tinkling bells. Heaven rebounded from the colossal shifting of its creators. For so long they had been the two pillars of the temple, neither too far nor too close, perfectly balanced to ensure balance and seamless perfection. The Nameless One placed his hand over her heart, wordlessly instructing countless orbiting cherubs to swirl around, incubating them from the rest of the Godhead. He gazed into to the eyes of the Holy Sophia, searching for the cause of her effect, but all he encountered was the thunder of silence. A solitary tear claimed his attention as it aimlessly wandered across her face. He felt wrenched when he saw into its substance, captivated by its transmission, entranced by its beautiful agony. He held his wife even closer. She began to rock back and forth, creating waves of movement that ricocheted throughout the heavens. Something unforeseen was about to happen, but even this was not known yet. Within the voluptuous rhythms of Sophia, a sea of sensation began to gather momentum, causing her to swell and expand beyond space. With voluminous eyes, she turned to face the Nameless One, transmitting her feeling instantaneously. "My love, what is happening? I can feel our children calling me from afar." The Nameless One responded, gathering his light into a spearhead. He condensed all infinity into one arcing flame of magnificence. With this single, solitary point, he penetrated Sophia, plunging the depths of her majesty. She gasped and threw her head back to accommodate his brilliance as he soared through her chambers, both secret and revealed. Like an unyielding, fiery phoenix, he swooped down into her, determined to vanquish her suffering. Again and again, he climbed to the heights of her majesty, seeking answers, seeking a beckoning truth. An urgency bit at his heels as he recalled how she'd looked at him. He had never seen that haunted appearance in her face before, and its memory scoured his heart. His living light shone throughout her landscape, causing deep, bellowing moans to pour forth from her lips. She delighted in his excavations, wanting him, yearning for him to penetrate her more, to find the places even he didn't know. Yet though he searched and searched, he found nothing, and with a reluctant rasp, he concentrated his light and re-emerged outside of her. "I found nothing," he whispered, as he dropped his head and turned his back on her. Disappointed that he could not help her and diminished from the almighty exertion, he walked away. Then, like a thunderous bolt of lightning, he struck his wings together to implode himself back into the pleroma. She watched his light begin to permeate other dimensions, leaving her alone. She rolled into a deep abyss, saddened he could not find the cause of her sorrows, aching, yearning, because he had left her inner sanctum. What was this incredible loneliness that swept through her? How could she feel this emptiness when the whole universe gyrated inside of her? Closing her eyes, the Holy Sophia turned inwards into the deepest hidden folds of her nature. There it was. She saw it. She heard it. It was the cry of many, many voices. "Please, Mother, please help us.